Welcome to the Access to Innovators podcast, powered by the premier life skills university, High Point University.
Hi, thank you for joining us. My name is Maddie Drobney, and I'm an entrepreneurship major at High Point University and inaugural member of the LIFT Fellowship Program, leading and inspiring female trailblazers. Today, I'm going one-on-one with 5 questions for former Vice President of Talent at Chick-Fil-A and High Point University's Talent Acquisition Expert in Residence, Dee Ann Turner. Ms. Turner, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Maddie, it's my pleasure to be here. I'm really excited to talk to you.
I'm very excited to talk as well. My first question is, right now I'm mapping out potential career paths. One path would be to work for a large Fortune 500 company, while the other would be to work with a startup. Based on your experiences, which path do you recommend and why?
So I haven't had the experience other than my own startup of doing that. I spent 33 years in a corporate position, but I have had experience with my son. In fact, he's an HPU grad, working with startups, and it all depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for an opportunity to grow and move through a corporate ladder and a hierarchy, and you want to hold certain positions, and that's what's important to you, then the corporate route is the way to go. And also have much more, in that corporate setting, you're going to have a much more defined role. And I might even use the word boundaries. You know, you're going to be in a certain lane, so to speak. For some people, they like that security of that. They like the direction of that. If you're the type of person who has more of an entrepreneurial spirit, and you don't have to necessarily know where everything's going. Like you're willing to take a little more risk, and you like the excitement of helping to build something. And it's one of those. It's sometimes a startup can be high risk, but it also can be high reward, both for what you feel intrinsically about accomplishing something like that, and sometimes they can have a really good payoff if things go well. You're on the ground floor of something, and in some ways, I had that at Chick-Fil-A a little bit. There were only 100 employees when I started there, and we had 150 restaurants doing $175 million in sales, and when I left there, it was $10.5 billion in sales and over 2,500 restaurants. So to be a part of something that grows like that. So in that one career, I really had that opportunity to be something on the ground floor, and then also experience the corporate. Things move faster in a startup. There's a lot of energy. The bigger something gets, usually the more it slows down. So all of those are things that you want to consider about what fits you best. Neither one is right or wrong. It's just what appeals to you as I've described those.
Yeah. There is an increasing trend towards corporate responsibility across American businesses. Can you explain what that means and why it is an important and fulfilling duty?
Corporate responsibility is really a way of ensuring that an organization is about something bigger than itself, and that while it makes money, at the same time it doesn't deplete and detract, whether it's resources or reflect poor corporate citizenship in any way. And so understanding an organization's responsibility to be a good steward of resources, whether that's natural resources or those are the talent resources, that's really what social responsibility is all about. And every organization needs to focus on that in some way, so that they're not just taking, but they're also giving back. And the thing that I think is important is that each organization determines the best way for them to do that, because it can never be the same for everyone. For some organizations, that means, it could be the recycling of products that they use. But for another one, it might be the way they impact a community through what they give to that community. One of the things I was involved at Chick-Fil-A that I really loved was we started a program called Shared Table. And it was where we contracted with an organization that came to Chick-fil-A restaurants and collected a couple times a week the leftover edible food. And they took that food and used it to create ingredients for brand new dishes for people in need who needed meals. And so it was great because they weren't just giving away a leftover sandwich or a leftover biscuit, but they were really preserving dignity by creating a whole new meal out of this and something that was really delicious for somebody else to have. And at the same time, reducing their waste of edible food. And that's one of my favorite examples of how an organization can be socially responsible of something and investing back in their communities.
Right. And I remember our conversation when I had the opportunity to have lunch with you back in the fall, and you had mentioned you landed a corporate responsibility role after your previous role at Chick-Fil-A. Could you speak a little about your experience with that?
Sure. So it was, we had a reorganization. I'd spent 30 years leading in talent at Chick-fil-A, and we had a reorganization. And one of the things, because I am somebody who likes to build things, I was tapped for the responsibility to launch and build Chick-fil-A's social responsibility function. And we started out, we really had to find our way of a strategy and what that meant. We knew it was something that was expected out of organizations. And the truth was, Chick-fil-A was already doing a lot of those things. One of the examples is their scholarship program. They've given away millions and millions of scholarships to people, to team members all over the United States. And they were already doing so many of these things in that area, but they just didn't have a cohesive strategy. So that really became my job, is to pull all that together under one strategy. And it was a big jump for me. But interestingly, Maddie, here's what I learned out of this. It wasn't about sustainability. Sure, I became a better recycler and I learned some things. But truthfully, what I learned about in that experience was leadership. And you would think I'd already learned that after my 20 years of leading talent for the organization. But in this situation, all those years in talent, I had done almost every single job in that function. I knew how to do it. I was the expert. But when I went to social responsibility, I wasn't an expert. I had to select other talent to be the expert, and I had to be a leader. And that's really what I learned so much about leadership during that time. And I realized that leadership is about selecting experts and extraordinary talent to do what needs to be done, and then trusting them to do it through accountability and those types of things. But really, that's what great leadership is. And I feel like I really honed those leadership abilities in that responsibility.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that your answer to that question ties into my next. What qualities do you look for when hiring someone? Are there common attributes or traits you like to see in candidates regardless of the role?
So you'll spend some time around me and you'll learn that I never hired people, but I selected talent. I believe that hiring people is a quantity part of the equation, and selecting talent is quality, getting the right people for the right roles. So in selecting talent, one of the things that I always look for is a servant spirit. I believe that every one of us, whether it's our coworkers or a customer or guest, patient, student, whoever it is, that we all serve someone. And so having that servant spirit to me is a really key attribute that I look for. I also look for people who have a track record of great decision making. Now, that doesn't mean that they haven't made any mistakes. We all make mistakes. But I'm much more interested in how they recovered from their mistakes and if they repeated the same mistakes. And so I really look at what that track record of decision making is. And then the other thing that I'm really looking for as a quality is I'm looking for someone who has character that matches the organization that I'm representing. And what that means is somebody who aligns well with the purpose of the organization, the mission of the organization, and the core values of the organization.
Many college students have competitive internships, impressive grades, and high campus involvement. How can I differentiate myself among other successful students on my resume?
I find that is so hard, especially when so much is done virtually now and actually automated through the interviewing processes. How do you actually stand out? One of the things, whether you're submitting a resume or you're filling out an application or you're actually in the interview itself, that I recommend is if you can give examples of what you've actually, examples of results that you've actually accomplished. So when you write your resume, don't just put the task you were assigned and rewrite your job description, so to say. But what you want to do is actually talk about from a results standpoint. I led this organization, and so maybe you were leading a campus organization, and through that, you all raised $50,000 towards a certain charity. Don't just say I led and give your job title to that organization, but actually put in the results of what you led. And that really helps your resume stand out. Just go all through your resume and talk about what it was that was a result because you did whatever you did, rather than just that you did it.
Yeah, that's great advice. I like the way that you emphasize the importance of rewording it and leading it towards what the result was versus what you physically did in the job.
Exactly.
For the companies that have been successful in hiring great talent, have you noticed any patterns in how they attract great people?
I think one of the things is, and especially for today, because I actually believe that there are three things that today's talent is looking for. Number one, they're looking for a remarkable culture, an organization that has a meaningful purpose, a challenging mission, and demonstrated core values. And they know what they are, and they live them out every day. Today's generation is looking to be about something bigger than themselves. They don't want to just help a company make a lot of money for the sake of making a lot of money. They want to see impact, and they want to be directly involved in that impact. And then the last thing that they're looking for are opportunities to grow and develop, not just to be promoted, although that's part of it, but they want to get new skills. They want to be able to look back and see how they've actually progressed and what they are able to add to the resume. So for organizations that really want to attract the best talent today, those are the things they need to be focused on. And out of all those things, I think this culture piece is absolutely the very most important one, because with the war for talent that we're experiencing right now and the lack of labor that's available, organizations who really focus day in and day out at the very top of the organization and then trickling down throughout, who focus on culture, are going to be the ones that are able to select the best talent.
And that answer kind of connects and almost answers my final question is, how important is culture and team versus hiring individual superstars?
Well, I think immediately, I'm a big sports fan. I don't know if you are, but I particularly love the game of football. I raised a few football players, and I think about what happens when a team, you look back we're recording this just after the Super Bowl. So you look back to the Super Bowl and you had 2 number 1 draft picks that were in the Super Bowl. Those teams were not there just because they had a number 1 draft pick and a superstar. It certainly helped them, and without a doubt, they may not have been in the Super Bowl without that. But that one person is just one of 11 players. You have to have offensive linemen that can keep that quarterback safe so that he has time to pass the ball or to hand it off. You have to have running backs that can establish a running game so that superstar passer has the opportunity to make those long passes that turn into touchdowns. You have to have a defense that can, on the other side of the ball, that can keep the team from scoring. And so I think that's true in our business life as well. You can have some superstars. You need some of those people that are extremely smart, that are innovative, that are curious. But at the same time, you're successful because you have a team of people who can do all those things. And hopefully you have a team of rock stars all together, and everybody's a rock star. But you have to build a team based on all kinds of skills and talents and abilities, and can't rely just that you're just going to get one person and that's going to make all the difference. The team will make the difference.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think that was a good example using football and team and just being days after the Super Bowl as a perfect example of having one, maybe number 1 draft pick, but that's not the reason they got there. Is the whole team is a huge aspect as to why. Thank you so much for sharing your extraordinary advice and achievements with us today, Ms. Turner. We are so grateful for your commitment to mentoring HBU students and joining a remarkable, innovative program that inspires our students and campus community. Thank you all for joining me on the Access to Innovators podcast powered by High Point University.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Maddie.
Thank you.